Hi, brothers. I am outside again recording to you because what I want to talk about today is us remembering our true nature, who we are as wild and free and undomesticated. The term rewilding comes from permaculture and the movement towards bringing pieces of land back to their natural wild state of being, unmanicured and naturally growing what it would grow. And we homos have been so incredibly manicured that we have forgotten our wild selves, our unconditioned selves, right? I've spoken a lot about how we've been shaped by our past, by our mothers, by religion, by our connections with each other, all of the different ways that we have been conditioned to have a particular identity that we walk around the world with. And that takes us so far away from what we truly want, the life that we want. Most of us don't really think about what our deepest values are, what we actually want out of life, because we're moving through all of the steps that we've been told that this is what creates success. You'll feel better if you have these symbols of status, living in a city and going to the best restaurants, being connected to cultural events in the cities, bars, having the availability of whoever you want to hook up with at any time right at your fingertips. And I feel that there are many of us who are rejecting that and that are starting to find our ways back to this. I by no means would say that I have been rewilded, but I am still in that process. And it's really been a returning because I grew up very close to nature until I was about 11 years old. And it would be like it's happening right now. It would be me and my dog going out into the woods for hours at a time. We lived rurally and had access um, to the creek, to the oak trees, to the big boulders all around me. And that's where I grew up. And there was a wild, free kid there. And that's where I would feel the most free is when I left the house and I would go wander. And so coming back to that wandering nature and remembering who I am at my essence, who I am in my primal self, in my instinctual self, and embracing that and trusting that I know what's right for me, that I can trust what I want. I can trust myself to make step-by-step choices and that it's going to lead me to where I'm meant to be in all times. But it's very unconventional to trust yourself and to not know every step that you're going to take or have the final destination mapped out. That is the manicured self. That is the conditioned self. That is walking the path that someone else laid out in front of us. In fact, it's driving on the 6-lane freeway that someone said, this is the direction you're going. Just get on the freeway and follow all of the other cars and go as fast as you can to get there. I think slow, intentional, present is really the medicine that we're all looking for, is to remember who and what we truly are. Who we are can't be defined. who we are can't be and shouldn't be contained within four white walls. Who we are is the plants that grow between the cracks in the concrete because we can't be contained like that. When I left the known environment of cities and started to reconnect with the earth and to live a bit more of a slower life, what I found was that I was quite uncomfortable and awkward. I didn't really know what to do with myself. And I found that I was much more anxious than I would have realized because the city has all of the stimulus. The city has all of the known. Here's one block, there's the next block. You know what you're going to get when you walk into a restaurant. Um, Even a park is manicured and shaped for your comfort. When, w- but what happens when our feet are in the dirt? When we get stung by a bee? What happens when we slow down and the pace of nature highlights how uncomfortable we are in our own skin because our logic, our thinking mind that has been conditioned, it's so strong and so loud and so neurotic, and that comes to the surface when we drop into our natural wild self. So for most of us, being wild, being that raw and tapped into our primal nature and power, when we connect to that, it feels dangerous to the parts of ourselves that tamed tamed ourselves so that we could feel safe in this world. But I want to remind you that finding your wild, true essence, it is safe. And in fact, it's the safest thing that you can be doing because what's there is your connection to source, to the earth, to your sexuality, to your intuition, your instincts, your power, your inner knowing. To me, what's unsafe is living a conditioned life because it is predicated on the idea that there is a destination that you have which will make you secure for the rest of your life. And so most people say, okay, I'm going to live this conditioned life until I've got enough money in the bank, and then I'm going to do what I want. And then you've lived so many years doing that, living as the conditioned self, the self that's not actually you. You spend so many years doing that that you forget who you actually are. You forget what you actually want, and you've created a life in which you believe that what you have is what you want until you go, fuck, none of this is really satisfying me. I guess I need to up the ante. I guess I need more money. Yeah. That's going to make me happy. Or maybe I need a vacation to an exotic place. Yeah, or I need that jacket. Oh, no, I need to just work out a little bit more. That's going to make me feel like myself. So, to me, it's the most unsafe way to live, the conditioned self, because security is an illusion, the type of security that our parents taught us to have. Maybe for their generation, the generation before, that path that was laid out was secure, was predictable. We're not living in that world anymore. The only thing that is safe, the only thing that is secure is our connection to source, to ourself, and to this true wild nature that we have. because, like my dog knows what he's doing, might not look like it to me sometimes. I go, "What is he doing over there?" And then I realize, "Oh, okay. He's digging a little hole because he knows that he'll be cool in that space." We know, we know what to do. And if we've gotten really far from our wild nature, we take step by step in connecting with that again. And it can feel awkward, it can feel inauthentic, right? Because we have lived as a conditioned self, because we've been disconnected to nature, because we have manicured ourselves so much that it can almost feel like another act to say, "Yeah, I'm rewilding myself," or we can feel like, I don't actually feel connected to nature. I don't actually feel connected to my primal self or my real desires or my intuition and instinct." That's okay. You take step by step. So if you're living in a city, and or you don't even have to be living in a city to be disconnected. We can be disconnected from our wild selves and be living out here. But if you feel disconnected to who you really are, to your raw nature, a step can be to simply put your bare feet on the earth, to get yourself connected to the earth as much as possible. You can start looking at the ways that you have created an identity that is not really true to who you are. If you go back, this is where, all of these videos that I'm posting, it all works together, right? Inner child work, self love, rewilding, balancing sexuality and spirituality, um, moving away from compulsive behaviors, all of this works together. And so you can take yourself back to your inner child. What did he love? What were his interests before he had to pretend to be somebody else? That's a way to bring you back to your natural essence, to rewild yourself, even if you grew up in a city. There is a wild nature within every little boy. Just as I believe that we homos have a natural inclination to the divine, to seek that connection to the divine, I believe that we have a natural inclination to be more connected to the earth. And the radical fairy movement in the 80s, I think it was the early 80s, the radical fairy movement definitely was a a remembrance of that and getting us to remember that we have this innate connection and that it's important that we do keep that connection for ourselves. I would love to see more of a movement within our communities to call ourselves back to the natural world and to our deconditioned wild nature. So, yeah, this video is just a reminder, a tap on the shoulder to say, hey, there's more to you, that there's more to your life as a homo than what gay culture has presented to you. There is an instinct within you that's always asking you to connect to it. There's a truth within you that is possibly, most likely, yelling at you through dysfunction in your body, through mental health disorders, through all of the stress in your nervous system, all of the times that you have put off what your what your true self actually wants to live a manicured life, every time we have done that, there's some part of us that starts to scream and get louder. So maybe this is your reminder to really ask yourself what you want, how you want to live your life, and how much of yourself has been manicured and constructed and conditioned versus how much of yourself you're actually allowing yourself to be that is truly who and what you are. I love you. Till tomorrow.